February 8, 2024, indications emerged that lingering regulatory approval stalled Dangote Petroleum Refinery's plan to release aviation fuel, also known as Jet A1, and diesel for sale in the Nigerian market in January. But that has now changed as the refinery finally commenced the sale of diesel to marketers in the country, pegging a minimum of 1 million litres of automotive gas oil, also known as diesel, per marketer. Joining me for more on this is Bolade. Thank you, Bolade, for joining me today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right, I have with me Bolade Agboola, oil and gas analyst from Chapel Hill, Denham. Now, let me begin by asking you how the industry received this news and what it signals to players.
I believe it's a news that we have been expecting, and it's a positive one. And for context, the Dangote Refinery has a capacity of 650,000 barrels of oil per day. And if we look at that, it's like the largest single train refinery in the world. And it is estimated that at full capacity, it should, it should meet 100% of our demands for gasoline, diesel, and, aviation fuel.
I'd like you to take that again. You said it should meet 100%. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, at full capacity.
All right. So how strategic is Dangote Refinery's choice of, starting with AGO and Jet A1? More like, starting with the industrial arm.
I align a little bit to what you're saying. I understand it's a strategic move, but I also like us to look at it from another viewpoint, in the sense that there's been delays in supply of crude oil to Dangote Refinery. And if we look at the demand arm of things, the demand for PMS is much higher when compared to the demand for diesel. And so we would expect that the company will want to play in a space where they'll be able to make a much significant difference at the beginning of their production. So I believe that is why, there's been, they're starting with diesel first compared to PMS.
All right, so officials of this particular, multi-billion-dollar plant and even oil dealers have confirmed that the product was dispensed to marketers at between 1,225 naira per litre and 1,300 naira per litre. And that, of course, depends on the volume that one purchases. Now, with this, how much should we expect to get the product at the pumps, or are we beginning to see a decline in the price across the board?
Before I answer that question, I would just like to, go through it in stages. I will start with the fact that currently we import most of our diesel, and NNPC is selling currently at about 1,415 naira per litre. And if you look at it, refining, helps us to remove the impact of freight cost, insurance, like domestic refining helps us to remove some of these costs out of the way, and we can clearly see it in the fact that Dangote is selling at about to marketers at about 1,225 to 1,003 per litre. And so if we look at that difference, we would expect that we assume that these prices that we have quoted is X marketers margin, and if it is X marketers margin, we would expect that for a competitive market, we would the oil marketers should be able to sell at about 10 to 50% markup from that cost. And given that this market is deregulated, that means you don't have to peg your price at anything, that there's competition in the market. We would expect that in order to gain a huge chunk of the market share, competitors will try to not overshoot their markup, and that should eventually lead to a reduction, like a slower pace of in price compared to what is currently trading at. So in the long run, we would expect that there'll be a decline in diesel prices going forward.
All right, when you say 15%, some persons will want to know, okay, so when you say 15%, how much is that going to be, in monetary terms?
Okay, so yeah, in looking at the markup of 15% on 1,225, it's about 1,405 compared to the 1,450 that Dangote NNPC rather is currently selling at.
Well, compared to the 1,700 naira it hovered, around in the past weeks, and I'm looking at competition and the principle of fair play. What do you think about this? Are we going to see a disruption that might just change the pricing dynamics in Nigeria? Because you have a manufacturer here who is selling at a particular price. We have other tank depots who is probably selling at some other price. Is there fair play here? Or, I mean, it doesn't matter. What matters is that there is competition and Nigerians are able to get a product, cheaper. After all, you have said that Dangote has the capacity, at full capacity, it can actually serve the Nigerian market fully.
So I think it's more of a competition kind of space. And if one of the things that I think will be like a major disruption is if there are fluctuations in the exchange rates. We know that the crude oil prices is globally, is the global stuff and it's pegged to the dollar. And would expect that, if Dangote is buying crude oil to be at $1, just that if he is selling to the domestic market, it will just, convert, after doing his cost in dollar, have to convert it to naira to sell to the market. So I believe that a huge risk or a change in the dynamics of price is hinged on fluctuations in the exchange rates. But then we've seen in the recent times that exchange rates has been relatively stable. So we not in the near term we don't expect any significant disruptions in that market.
All right, so let's talk about, the impact of Dangote entering the energy market and, speaking more specifically, supplying products to the domestic market. Now we've started with AGO, next is Jet A1, and then before we know it, PMS. What's the significance of this and what are the impacts we expect to see, on the economy?
I would like to look at it from three different aspects. I believe, first of all, the recurring fuel scarcity that we usually see in the country should significantly improve, given that there is much there's improved production in the domestic country. Another thing is FX savings. It's something that we believe that would bode well for the Nigerian economy at large. And lastly, I'll be talking about exposures to happenings in the global environment. So in a situation where there are significant disruptions in supply chain, it will not have so much significant impact on us in Nigeria because we have capacity to refine and that kind of way we are not exposed to supply chain disruptions.
All right, so talking about, the minimum purchase requirements that Dangote has talked about, which is 1 million liters per marketer. What do you think about this? Don't you think, smaller independent marketers might be financially excluded, or that's nothing to be worried about?
In my opinion, I believe that there is nothing to be worried about. Why I'm saying this is because there are like structures in place for all these independent marketers, like there's the IPMAN structure, like there's an association. So if they cannot buy going alone, they can go as a team or as an association. They can, just ensure that they have a structure around things and they're able to, buy the minimum of 1 million liters per marketer. So I think that they can use that route instead of, just going by themselves, especially if they don't have the funds and capacities to do so currently.
Okay, thank you so much, Bolade Agboola, oil and gas analyst, Chapel Hill Denham Securities. Thank you for your time on the show.
Yes, thank you.